I want to speak to you today about urban legends, debunking spiritual myths. This is the third part of a four-part sermon series entitled Urban Legends. What we're doing is we're looking at spiritual myths, teachings that are in the church today that are being said so often that they're actually accepted as truth. Wherein when you look a bit deeper, you find out that they're actually not true. They're more like either a misquote, a misinterpretation, or it's just a distortion of the facts. What we're looking at is spiritual myths, because in the church today there are a lot of things being taught from the church that people are accepting, Christians are accepting, and not even questioning them. And the reason they're doing that is because the story's been told over and over and over. We spoke about a couple of urban legends, like the Bigfoot. Who remembers the Bigfoot? Anybody seen the Bigfoot lately? That's why it's an urban legend. Alright, there's an urban legend that reigns out of New Jersey, specific just to the state of New Jersey in America. And it dates back to 1735, 300 years ago, 1735. It revolves around this lady, this woman called Jane Leeds. She had 12 children. It's a lot of children. When she heard that she was expecting her 13, she flipped out. And in a time of frustration, she actually cursed that child and called him a devil. Anyway, on one stormy night, 1735 in New Jersey, she gave birth to this child. And at first the child looked normal. But then it wasn't long before the child started to change. They started to get cloven hooves, his feet, bat wings, a head of a goat, and a forked tail. And it growled and screeched and flew out the chimney and into the nearby forest called the Barren Pines. And from that day on, it has been known as the Jersey Devil. And you might think that's where the story ends, but it doesn't, because strangely enough, from that time on, people have actually claimed to have seen this Jersey Devil. So much so, the sightings of this creature is so widespread that the Philadelphia Zoo has actually put out a $10,000 reward for anybody that can capture this creature. So I don't know about you, but I can do with $10,000. So anybody up for a bit of creature hunting? It'll probably cost that much just to get to New Jersey. My question is this: the people in New Jersey believe this? This is a real thing to you. And I know when I told you this story, many of you laughed and very skeptical, weren't you? Most of you, I hope, thought that this is complete nonsense. This is rubbish, and this isn't true. There's a lot of people in New Jersey that beg to differ. The people in New Jersey, a lot of the Americans actually believe this is true. Why? What makes a difference between the people in New Jersey and us here today at St. Mark's? You know what the difference is? They've heard this story for the last 300 years, told over and over to them. By now, 2022, it's become fact. It's become truth. They don't even care if it's true or not or where it comes from. People have seen it, therefore this story is true. And that's the danger in urban legends, especially with spiritual myths. Because even in the church, there's things we've accepted for years and years, thousands of years, that we've accepted as truth, but when you actually look at it, you might think, well, it's not true. If you actually bother to read the Bible or to check out whether this is true or not. One of the biggest spiritual myths we have in the Christian church today is none other than, let me see if you can guess it, Christmas. We're coming up to Christmas next month. Christmas Day is when? 25th of December. And this is a scene that we all see in Christmas, the nativity scene. We see the wise men, we see the shepherd boys, we see the stable, we see Jesus and Joseph and Mary. And you know what? What if I told you that this was actually wrong? What if I told you that this was a spiritual myth? First of all, there weren't 3 wise men. The Bible doesn't say how many there were. And it doesn't say that they came to a baby Jesus in a stable. It says that they came to a child Jesus in a house. The shepherd boys, they were there. They were there with baby Jesus in Bethlehem. But it doesn't say they were in a stable. The only reference in Luke says that they came and found Jesus in a manger, which is a feeding trough of an animal. Many scholars say they believe it was actually a cave, not a stable. And what about that 25th of December day that you all shouted out? Oh, where in the Bible, Linda, is that? Aliyah, you must have read that once or twice. Are you sure it's not there? There's nowhere in the Bible that mentions anything about Jesus being born that 25th of December. If you really look deep, it'll probably be more like September. Yet for 2,000 years, we have accepted this as truth. Not even questioning, not even bothering to read the Bible. And then, you know what? The crazy thing about this, there's only 2 chapters in the whole Bible that talk about the birth of Jesus. Matthew chapter 2 and Luke chapter 2. It's very easy to remember. 2 chapters only that talk about the birth of Jesus. And if you read that, you'll have all the answers. But we choose not to read that and just accept what people have told us. You see the danger now? The spiritual myths, urban legends. Today we're going to be talking about a spiritual myth or urban legend. It's one that you've heard before. You've probably even said it yourself. It's a simple one, and it's simply, God will never give you more than you can handle. Have you ever heard that before? God will never give you more than you can handle. Let me ask you today, have you ever felt overwhelmed, overburdened by life? There's just too many things going on. You can't control it. You're working too late. You're working 7 days a week. You're working two jobs. And things just get too much. Put up your hand if you've ever felt like that in your life. It's only one or two of you. God bless you. Okay, there's a lot of you that feel like that. And you know what's strange? I found out when you ask people how they're doing today, the most common response is, I'm busy. Have you heard that? I'm fine and I'm good. Everyone you talk to, I'm busy, especially in work-related scenarios. Everyone at work, if you say, how are you doing? The first answer, I'm busy. What do you want? I'm busy. I can't help you right now. I'm busy. We're so taken up in life that busyness has become a norm. It's becoming a part of our daily life. You know, it's not meant to be like that. That's why God instituted the Sabbath. The Jewish Sabbath was a Saturday. He said to the Jews, listen, you guys are working hard, but I'm going to force you to have one day where you do nothing. People have the wrong idea. It's another spiritual myth. Christians think that the Sunday is our Christian Sabbath. And that's when we come to church to worship. That's wrong. There's only one Sabbath in the Bible, the Saturday Sabbath. And it wasn't a time of worship. It was a time for rest. So much so that God put this in the commandments before murder, before theft, before lying. The fourth commandment is rest. So God understands that we will be overwhelmed in life, but He wants us to have a good balance between the two. He doesn't want you to be overwhelmed. And in the Bible, if there's one person that was overwhelmed by the pressures of life, it would probably be Moses. We kind of overlook his story because it's such a long, big 40-year period, but he was so overwhelmed. Think of it, he had 2 million Jews following him. He had to lead them out of Egypt towards the promised land. And he was an old man. I say old man with respect to the people in this church. He was 80 years old. I know that some of you are older than that. You guys are young. God bless you. He was relatively old. And he had to lead these people out, and you know, they were like babies. All they done from the time they left Egypt was complain and grumble. And God provided for them manna, food from heaven, the bread. And they said, we don't want bread, we want meat, we want meat, we want meat. It sounds like a protest in South Africa for service delivery. We want meat. And he was overwhelmed by this. He had all these people complaining to him every day, and eventually he kind of broke. And this is what he says in Numbers. This is the words of Moses. I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. Do you think he had more than he could handle? Nod your head, because he did. That's what he says. He says, I can't do this no more, God. He's also killing me. I'm stressed out. I'm too pressured. I can't take it anymore. God, please do something. He was overwhelmed. You can hear the frustration in his voice. I cannot carry on with all these people. And you know, sometimes well-meaning Christians will come to you. I'm sure they would have been to Moses also and said, Moses, don't worry. It's going to be all right, because God will never give you more than you can handle. And you've probably heard that before. Somebody may have said that to you. Maybe you have said that to somebody else. God will never give you more than you can handle. The truth is, God will. And we can just see that in the life of Moses. He will give you more than you can handle. And He does that not to punish you, not to destroy you, not to harm you. He does that so you can draw close to Him. He does that so you can depend on Him and not yourself. You can depend on others for help. This is what happened in the story. Moses couldn't take it no more, and he says to God this. Numbers 11:15. He says this. So if you're going to deal thus with me, please kill me at once. Did you read that there? That's like serious words from Moses. He says, God, if this is the way it's going to be, kill me. I cannot take this pressure. It's too much for me. I'm an old man and I can't take it no more. So if this is the way it's going to be, then right now you get rid of me, because I don't want to live one more hour with this pressure, being overwhelmed like this. And we overlook the story of Moses. As I said, he was 80 years old. And you might think, well, that was nothing. In the olden days, they used to live like 900. No. Before Noah, they lived on 900. After the flood, the average age of people dropped to 80, 75, 80. That was the average lifespan of people. So if you talk about Moses being 80, he was old. And he had 2 million people that he had to look after and carry. And they grumble and complain all the time. In this hot, dry desert for 40 years. And now do you think, knowing that context, do you think he was overwhelmed? Do you think he maybe had a bit more than he could handle? He did. And he cracked up and he said, God, I don't want none of this. Get rid of me. I'm sure some of us have felt like we don't have to answer now just introspectively, but I'm sure there's been times and days in your life when you didn't even want to wake up, it was so bad. Your finances were through the roof, the relationships were broken, you were heading for a divorce, you had this illness, you had someone suffering from an illness, and you couldn't take it no more. That's where Moses was. He said, God, I can't do it no more. This is how God answered him. The very next verse says this, and you might see that it says Yahweh, then Yahweh. Then Yahweh said to Moses, the word Yahweh is a personal name of God. You won't find it in your Bibles. In your Bibles, you'll probably see the word Lord, L-O-R-D, in caps lock. The only reason for that is because when they originally wrote the English Bible, they didn't know how to pronounce the name of God, Yahweh. They only had consonants. They didn't know what vowels to put in there. So they just left it out and said, we're just going to call it Lord. Nowadays, scholars have given us a bit more insight and widely agreed upon that the name of God is Yahweh. The old name you might be familiar with is Jehovah. Put up your name, if you put up your hand, you heard of Jehovah. Yahweh is the more correct pronunciation of God's name. Yahweh said to Moses, gather before me 70 men who you will recognize as the leaders of Israel. Bring them to the tabernacle, the sacred tent, who stand with you. I will come down and talk to you there. This is so cool. God comes down and talks to Moses at the tabernacle. I will take some of the spirit that is upon you and I will put on the spirit on them also. They will bear the burden of the people along with you. So you'll not have to carry it alone. So here God gets a solution. He says, you're stressing out before you do drastic measures. Moses, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get 70 people from the tribes of Israel. We're going to call them up. And I'm going to take some of that spirit of leadership that's on you and I'm going to anoint them with it. So then we can spread out the burden. What I want you to notice is that God did not take away the burden. God could have done so many things. He could have wiped half of the Israelites out. That would have taken the load off. Right? He could have not given 70. He could have given 1,000 men to help him. He could have given Moses more years, more vitality, more energy, more wisdom. But God done none of that. You see what? God didn't take any of the burden away. The burden was still there and Moses had to still deal with it. Every part of it. The only thing now, God helped him to deal with it. He helped him share the load. So it wasn't 150% of the burden. It was now maybe only 50% or 30% of the burden. And during this time, Moses had people coming to him every day. You can imagine this guy working 16 hours a day, throughout the night. People coming to him with their problems and burdens. He had to counsel, he had to advise, he had to make solutions to their problems and arguments. And that must have taken the toll on him, man. Imagine doing that all day, every day. And eventually he said, I can't do it. Rather, Lord, kill me because I'll be better off. And God said, no, well, what we're going to do is we're going to spread out the burden. The burden's still there, Moses. Tomorrow there's still going to be 2 million people coming with complaints and problems. But now you won't be alone. There'll be other people to help you. The truth is God will give you more than you can have. And He does that so you can rely on Him more. You can depend on others and also more and most importantly on God Himself for His strength and His faith and His power. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share 3 things with you that what I call the gift of too much. The gift of too much. You might think if that's a gift, I don't want it, Raymond. It's a gift that I really, no, maybe we need the gift of too much because it's when we're in need that we will turn to God. So what this gift teaches us is, firstly, it teaches us to put something down, to prioritize. Because there's so many of us there's so many things on our plate and we're doing so much, we're overwhelmed by doing so much. I talk to my sister every week and she's overwhelmed. Because there's so much on our plate that we're doing things, we're working 2 jobs, we're working throughout the night, and we need to prioritize and find out what's really important, what do we really need to do, and what do we need to get rid of. We see this in the story of, in the Bible, of Jesus speaking to Mary and Martha. Mary and Martha, they have a brother. Anybody know what his name is? Say it again. Lazarus, yeah, they were three friends and they loved Jesus. Jesus loved them. Jesus came over one day to have dinner. And what happened was Mary, the one sister, came to Jesus, fell at his feet, and they started to chat up the storm. They started to talk and giggle and laugh. And they spoke all about the kingdom and all about the parables. The other sister, Martha, was in the kitchen. And she was cooking up a storm, and she was dusting and spring cleaning and putting the candles on and the incense. She was very, very busy and overwhelmed with all this work. And she got stressed out and she broke. And she came to Jesus and said, Jesus, I'm doing all this work. I'm overwhelmed. This is too much for me to handle. Talk to Mary. Talk to my sister. Tell her to come help me. And this is what Jesus says. The story of Luke 10, Jesus says, Martha, Martha. Just there you get it. You get where he's going. Martha, Martha. It's like when my wife says, Ray, Ray. Then I know it's all going downhill. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things. Put up your hand if you're upset and worried about many things. Some of us are. There's so many things going on in our life. We have relationship problems, we have marital issues, we've got financial, we've got illnesses. Some of us are just so overwhelmed. He says you worry and upset about so many things, but few things are needed. He says you're doing all these things, but really you shouldn't be doing all these things because there's only a few things needed. In the context of this story, he actually says this, indeed only one. And then he says, Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. What does Mary do? Talking to Jesus. That was more important at that time. Yes, they could have eaten any time. The cleaning was important, but they could have done that the next day. Spring cleaning, they could have done that at the end of the week. What was more important at that time was sitting with Jesus and talking to him. Because that's what's important, relationships. So many of us are so taken up with our work life and our social life that we're neglecting the most important thing, relationships. The relationship with your wife, your husband, your children, your parents. We begin so trapped up in the work and our careers that we're neglecting the most important part. And this is what Jesus says. He says, at this point, Martha, this is the most important thing. I'm not going to be here for very much longer. I'm on my way to Jerusalem. I'm on my way to my execution, my crucifixion. Spend this time with me because this will have eternal consequences. We need to prioritize. We need to put down certain things. Let me give you an example with a prop. I've got a simple prop here. And maybe I can have some people in the front come help me. These guys, you guys came here especially for today. DeAndre, right? DeAndre, step up, my good man. Everybody give DeAndre a warm welcome. It's the first time in this church. All you're going to do, DeAndre, you don't have to be nervous. You're going to just hold these things apart, parallel to the ground. Then you're going to try and balance these things, all right? And what I want you to do is walk fast towards the other side. Now you're really smiling, all right? So you've got to balance these things. And then you just got to walk as fast as you can. And let's see if you can do it. All right, ready, steady, go. And so far not that good. All right, no, I'll give you a second chance. Come on, it's your first time in the church. Done. Okay, 1, 2, go. And oh no, all right. And I'll see you laughing and say, come up here. It's your boyfriend. I know you're going to go and say, oh, you couldn't even do that. Now you can help it. You can. Ready? Are you ready? Ooh. Go. And you got 2 steps further. Thank you, my darling. Thank you. Moi, man, moi. Well done, guys. But now I want you to notice, it's difficult balancing the 2 balls. But if I put one down, I put it down, right? And I've got one. And now it gets a whole lot more easier for me to control. I'll even, if you think this is magic, it's not, I'll let DeAndre do it. DeAndre, come do this. And you'll see, he's the same guy that just dropped those balls because he had too much on his plate. It was overwhelming and something's going to fall, something's going to crack, something's going to fall. But no, now he's got it all under control. Go for it, DeAndre. Look at that. Give him a round of applause. It's so easy. Why? Because he put something down. You've got to prioritize. Because sometimes life is so overwhelmed and overburdened that we've got all these things, we've got all these balls that we're trying to juggle, and they're going to fall. And sometimes you're going to look back upon your life and you're going to see the most important things that fall into the cracks. Your sons, your daughters, your parents, your husband, your wife. Those people that you should have been reaching out to, they have fallen away. Why? Because you're trying to do so many things that really aren't important. Tell me, who's got a to-do list? I'm a really big fan of to-do lists. You can just hold it for me, Leah. I want to encourage you today to get a to-don't list. Did you hear that? A to-don't list. Because so many of us have all these things in our to-do list. What you need to do today is take some of those things and move it over to your to-don't list. Because some of those things really aren't important. You need to put something down. The first thing this gift of too much teaches us is to put something down. The second one, it teaches us to give something away. It teaches us to give something away. To delegate, to give something to someone else. There's people that have people around you, brothers or sisters or family, or even daughters and sons, or at work you have colleagues that can take some of the pressure off of you. And that's what we need to do. Once you put some things down, the other things that really aren't in your sphere of influence, that you look back and say, I really shouldn't be doing this thing. Thank you, Des. You want some water? Something short. Can you open it? When you want to help it, just open it, Jason. Because I know those things are a bit tough. Thank you. There we go. God bless you, Cynthia. The same thing happened to Moses. As I said, he was wandering in the desert and he had all these people coming to him all the time. They were grumbling and complaining. He had all these people he had to counsel and give advice to. And then a man stepped into the picture, his father-in-law, Jethro. Jethro came to Moses and he gave him some advice. First of all, he said this. In Exodus 18, it carries on the story of Moses. Moses' father-in-law, this is Jethro, not Jethro Tull. Anybody remember? No one knows Jethro Tull. I think it's actually before my time too, to be quite honest with you. Jethro said to him, what you are doing is not good. Everybody say not good. So, some of the things that you're doing today, it's not good. Jethro told Moses what I'm telling you today. There's so many things on your plate. It's not good. He says, it's not good. You and the people will certainly wear yourselves out. And that was bound to happen. All these things are too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. God will never give you more than you can handle. Untrue. God will. So much so that Moses was so overwhelmed that everyone else could see it, but not even him. Jethro comes and says, Moses, what are you doing, buddy? You can't do this no more. You can't counsel 2 million people every day. It's going to be the end of you. Stop it. And he actually gives him some advice. And he says to him, I want you to go through the tribes of Israel and pick out men of honor, integrity, men of leadership qualities, men who are good and true. Call them out and let those people be leaders of 1,000 and 150 and 10s. What is he doing? The same as God was doing in the 70s, spreading out the burden. So now what Moses learned to do was to delegate, to give some of that burden off. Again, the problem wasn't gone. The burden didn't disappear. It only helped him out because he took some of that burden from himself and he gave it to somebody else. You've got to highlight and earmark people in your life that you can give something to. That has the same qualities of integrity and truth as you do, that won't stuff it up, that won't make problems with it, but you can trust them with it and say, listen, I cannot take this 150% of the work I'm doing. Can you just take a little bit of it? And then find these people that you can start delegating things to. And this is the second most important thing. You first got to learn to put something down, and you've got to learn to give something away. The third most important one, probably the most difficult one. It teaches us to give something to God. How many of you are holding on to something today that you should be giving to God? Because some things in life you can't put down. You're going to do that today. You're going to see what you can put down. You're going to look at things what you can't give away. And physically and practically you can do that. But there's some things that you can't. There's some things that we're dealing with on the inside. Internal burdens of emotional disturbance that you can't just put down because you've got to deal with it. A sickness, a financial stress, a loss of a loved one, whatever it is that you're dealing with. There's a burden of emotional turbulence within you. And you can't just put it down. You can't just give it to somebody else. It's not their burden. It's your burden to carry. It's in those times where God says, give it to me. Give it to me. I can take it. Let's see what it says in the Psalms. Cast your cares on the Lord and He will sustain you. It's quoted by Peter again in the New Testament. The same words. He says, cast your cares upon the Lord and He will take care of you. Cast your cares. And I love that word, just cast. Throw it out there to God. Because there's so many of us that are so overburdened and we can't deal with this thing. And as I said, we can't give it to somebody else. We can't put it away. We've got to deal with it. But the best person to give it to then is God. And God said, listen, I can take it. I'm not going to get rid of the burden. It's not going to disappear. You're going to still have it in your mind. But I'm going to take some of the responsibility, some of the pressure, some of the stress off of you. Do you see that? God says, I'm going to hold it now. So I've got the burden. You know it's here. But now the stress and the pressure of worrying about this burden is now off of you. And you know what, in that word there, cast, everybody say cast. It's the Hebrew word shalak. Everybody say shalak. There you learn some Hebrew today, shalak. You know what it means? It means to throw. To throw. And it's a very important word that we overlook. Give me that ball again. Some background music. Here's my burden. It's an emotional burden that I can't put down, I can't give to anybody else. And this is freaking me out, this is stressing me out. I can't take it, I'm struggling. I go to bed crying every night. I wake up feeling this burden, and I need to give it to God. And this is what we do, we put it here. That's arm length away, you see that? You're going to just, there it is. So I've put it aside, haven't I? I've taken it off of myself, but it's there. So every time I need it, I can just pick it up again. And that's what we do, because we control things. We can't just relinquish, we can't just surrender. That's why this word is there, shalak. It means to throw, get rid of. So who's going to be my catchers? Shako. I don't need to hit Milani in her face, so I'll throw. Okay, go for it, I'm throwing it. Alright, there, so my burden's thrown away. Let me get another one. Who's going to be my other catchers? Now Seth, you're a big guy. Don't hit anybody. You're looking at me like I'm crazy. Alright, there we go. Right at the back, Gail. Alright, there we go. What have I done? I've thrown my burdens. And now it's very difficult for me to get them again, isn't it? Because I have to go and find out who caught it. I have to go wingle out and meander between the stuff. Because now God has it. And He says, you've thrown it to me, it's fine. You don't have to come looking for it. I've got it. And now that stress, that pressure that you're dealing with every day, I've still got the burden, it still has not gone away, that emotional burden. The finances is not going to just disappear. The divorce is not just going to come right. Or that illness is not just going to go away. God says, I've just got the pressure now, so you can just relax. Just relax, stop crying. Just take a deep breath, count to 10, and know that I've got the burden now. And I'm going to help you to deal with it. That's the problem. We won't deal with it. We want to keep it here, and we want to go to ourselves. God says, just throw it, cast it. Like anybody been fishing, you have to cast your line far out to get the fish. God says, cast your burdens far out there. It won't disappear, but I'll help you deal with it. And that's the part that I need you to get today. God will give you more than you can handle. He does it so you can rely more on Him and depend more on Him. And turn to Him and say, God, I can't do this no more, like Moses. I'm cracking up, I'm too pressured, I'm too stressed. But I need you, Lord, to give me your strength. Last week we spoke a bit about the Apostle Paul, and we spoke about that he had this thorn in the side, this thorn in the flesh. We don't know what it was. It could be an ailment, a disability. I don't know what it was. Nobody does. But he prayed and he pleaded and he begged God, God, please take this away from me. 3 times he begged, take it away, take it away, take it away. And God said no. God said, no, I'm not going to do that. But this is what God did say. In 2 Corinthians, the last verse before we close. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Such a beautiful verse. My grace is sufficient for you. This is what God's message is to everybody listening to my voice today. Those who are overwhelmed, those who are overburdened, those who are cracking up, those who can't take it. This is your message. My grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in your weakness. And that's kind of where we get it wrong too. We think we got to be strong all the time, don't we? We think that God won't give us any more because we got to be strong for our families. We got to be strong for our sons, our daughters, our parents. We got to be strong for the colleagues. We got to be strong. That's a lie of the devil. He's using this very myth, this urban legend, saying, "Don't worry, God can still give you more. You won't crack up. God's got a lot more to give you." That's a lie. The truth is, God wants you weak. God wants you broken. He wants you on your knees. Because it's only when you're on your knees that you can look up to the great God and ask for His strength. Let's be honest, when things are going good in our life, we really don't depend on God. Because we got it all under control. It's like balancing that board. It's all under control. It's your own strength, your own ability. Most times we don't even bother to look at God during those times. But it's when the balls are falling. It's when you're cracking up. It's when you're at your weakest that you have to turn to God. And God says, that's when I need you. I need you broken. I need you weak. Because it's in that weakness that my power, my strength will be more beautifully and powerfully displayed in your life. The urban myth is this: God will never give you more than you can handle. That's a lie. It's a lie of the devil. The truth is, God most often will give you more than you can handle. He does not do that to harm you or to punish you. He does that so you can depend on Him more. That you can learn these three important principles we learned today. That you can learn the gift of too much by putting things down. The second one was giving things away. And the most important one was giving something to God. So let's do that today. Let's apply these three principles to our life and understand that it's in your weakness that God's power and strength will be more beautifully displayed. God will give you more than you can handle. The beauty is that He'll help you handle it. Amen.